This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, thank you for being an exhibitor in an AEM event and for taking time out of your schedule to view this online exhibitor educational course from AEM. My name is Jefferson Davis. I am a trade show productivity expert with Competitive Edge, and I'm excited to present improving lead management to increase your sales conversion. So let's start off with a really important insight and a fact, and it's really what I call the truth about trade show return on investment. If you're not signing contracts at the show and you ever hope to get a return on your investment, got to realize that the real product of a trade show for you is leads. Improving your trade show lead management process is critical to achieving your exhibiting ROI and measuring your results. So let's take a look at some best practices you can apply for your next show to help you capture higher quality leads and convert more leads to sales. Step number one, clearly define what is and what is not a lead. Let's start with what isn't a lead. If someone drops by, puts a business card in your fishbowl for the chance to win something, is that a lead? No, it's not. I call that a contestant. If your booth staff is just randomly scanning anybody who gets near your booth and there's no engagement with the visitor and you're not capturing additional qualifying information, I wouldn't call that a lead either. I might call it a scan or a swipe, but I wouldn't call it a lead. So what is a lead? Well, there's 4 elements that create a quality lead. Number 1, personal interaction with somebody from your company. Number 2, key qualifying questions are asked. Number 3, the answers are documented, captured. And number 4, the next step has been identified and agreed to by the visitor. That's a lead. If you give me 500 business cards in a fishbowl, I'll be lucky to convert 5 of those to business. If you give me 50 leads that match up on these 4 criteria, I'll convert 15 to 25 of those to business. So let's make sure that everybody on our team knows what is and what isn't a lead. Step number 2, set specific and realistic lead goals. We use a formula called exhibit interaction capacity, and this is a mathematical formula you can use to calculate the number of face-to-face interactions you can execute in your exhibit. So let's go ahead and do this together for your next show. I want you to pick a show that's on your calendar and go ahead and run this formula with me right now. Okay, so it starts off with the number of exhibiting hours in the show. In my example, there are 16. How many hours are in your next show? Second, how many people are going to be staffing your booth on average for all 16 hours? You'll see at the bottom our footnote. The rule of thumb is 50 square feet per exhibit staffer. In my example, I've got a 10 by 10 booth, so I'm going to use 2. What's your number? Now, when you multiply the 2 together, you have your total staff hours. This is the time you have available to interact with visitors in your booth. Next number, listen very carefully here. I want you to select a target number of interactions per hour per staffer. 3 is conservative, 4 is moderate, 5 may be aggressive, depending upon the size of the show and the amount of exhibit hall traffic. So I want you to pick a number between 3 to 5. And if you're using this formula for the first time, I strongly recommend you start at 3. So in my example, I have the capacity for 96 face-to-face one-to-one interactions in my booth. Now, here's the thing. Not all 96 are going to convert to a lead. Some percentage will. The benchmark is 25%, 1 out of 4 visitors converting to a lead. So by using the benchmark, we can now set a specific and realistic lead goal of 24 qualified leads by closing time. Now, if I have 2 booth staffers working my booth, then each staffer is on the clock to generate at least 12 qualified leads by closing time. Step 3, we can't just set a lead goal, we've got to track it. So we need to assign a lead captain, and this is somebody that's going to be in charge of trade show lead management. They will set and communicate the lead goal. They'll ensure the lead capture devices are both available and functioning. They'll be monitoring the lead goal on an end of shift, end of day. They'll be correcting non-performers, people who aren't capturing enough leads or enough information, and they'll be acknowledging people who are doing well. They will also be the point to make sure that the data entry moves from the lead capture device into your CRM system and is routed to your reps, dealers, or distributors. And they might even be the point of contact for post-show reporting. So I strongly encourage you to develop a scorecard. Many of the electronic systems will have this tracking already built into it, but here's an example of what it would look like. You'll notice I have the number of days on the show, the number of hours. I'm breaking my lead goals into AM, PM shifts, and I'm tracking my actual at the, if it's a 9 to 1 show, I'm tracking at 1. And then the 1 to 5, I'm tracking again at 5, and I'm keeping score. Are we ahead or are we behind on a day-to-day basis? It's a great way to build staff awareness, focus, and accountability to make sure you hit your lead goal. Step number 4, I encourage you to reach out to your sales team, your dealers, your distributors, and ask them what information, if we could capture from a visitor at the point of contact, would help you better understand and value the opportunity. The information may be all over the place. Sometimes the email address is not in the badge when you scan it, so that might be it. Certainly, what product they're interested in and how high the interest is. You could ask about buying influence or role. You could ask about the evaluation or decision team. You could ask the purchase time frame, or if there's a seasonality to this type of purchase. You definitely want to talk about the next action and anything else that you feel would qualify a lead. And I strongly encourage you to always rent and use the show's electronic lead capture system and take it one step further. Customize the capture device to make sure you're capturing the information you need to truly qualify a lead. Step number 5, not all leads are created equal. So we need to think about a grading, developing a lead grading process. And a great technique is to use a 3x3 or a 4x4 type grid and define what information would help you assign value to a lead. So in my example, I'm using time frame, budget, and buying role. Okay, and then I'm going to determine the number of codes, which is in this example 3, but you might have 2 or you might have 4. Then I'm going to put a definition on what each code means. You'll see in time frame, I'm breaking it down in 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12 months, and more than 1 year. Make sure that your grading codes are integrated into the capture device, and talk with your booth staff about these are must capture fields. If you're really going to quickly grade and assign quality or value to a lead, you got to capture the information. Step number 6 is to get the visitor to commit to a clear next action. The biggest mistake I see in booths is the booth staffer saying, well, if I can scan your badge, we'll send you some information. Well, here's a question. Did the visitor ask for their badge to be scanned? Was sending them information really the next step? There was a lot of assumptions going on in that example. So you're going to want to make sure that you train your booth staff on how to get commitment. So a close in the booth, meaning you're ending the interaction, is getting the visitor to commit to that clear next action. And when do you close? You close when you get positive feedback, when you're presenting a solution, and the person voices, wow, this is awesome, this looks like it might be a fit, that's the time to start closing on the lead. What you want to do then is think about, who am I with? What type of visitor? Where are we in the relationship? Is this a customer, a prospect, a new opportunity? And if we're already in a sales cycle with them, what step of the sales cycle are we now in? And you'll want to ask questions of, what is our next step? When would you like that to happen? Where does it happen? And who besides yourself would be involved? Okay, so you'll want to think about your typical next action steps. And here's a simple two-step getting the visitor to commit technique that I teach. Step number one is to get the visitor to voice interest. So I might say it like this: John, let me ask you, what you've learned about our solution so far, does it sound like it might be worth learning more about? And that's a closed-end question, yes or no. Hey, based on what you've learned so far, does it sound like it might be worth learning more about? And the visitor, if they say, yeah, absolutely, go ahead and call the next step. Say, why don't we go ahead and set up a whatever, visit, appointment, send you information, whatever that next step is. But if I ask the question, John, based on what you've learned, does this sound like it might be worth learning more about? And he responds with, well, I I don't know, maybe, probably. Then don't call the next step. Collaborate with the visitor. Ask, what do you think our next step should be? When the visitor collaborates on the next step, their commitment to that next step is often more real. Number 7, follow up on all leads captured. First best practice is develop your lead follow-up plan by priority before the show. For example, your A leads are going to have a certain follow-up track, your B leads will have a follow-up track, and your C leads will have a follow-up track. Next, follow up fast or in line with the visitor's request. That's why we always ask, what do you think our next step is, and when would you like that to happen? Don't stop short. Once you capture a lead, plan for at least 6 to 12 touches, over the next 3 to 6 months. And be sure to use multiple media like email, mail, telephone, in-person visits, and social media. Okay, don't just email, or call, but develop your plan to use multiple media. And number 5, in your follow-up is be sure you're delivering value, that you're educating, you're guiding, you're not just always trying to sell on every follow-up touch. So reference guides, educational content and materials, social media posts, social media groups, newsletters, product samples, promotional products, case studies, testimonial letters and videos are all great ways to add value to the customer's world and not always be selling on every touch. And here's a bonus for you: tracking leads through your CRM. Many companies today are using Salesforce.com or Marketo or some form of CRM software. So here's a few best practices. Number 1, whatever data you're capturing in your lead device, you should try to set up a user definable field in your CRM that matches. That way you can migrate the data from the CRM straight into your the right field in your CRM. Second, if it's a brand new lead, first point of contact, then you should use the origin or the source code to tag it to the show. You should be able to look back 10 years from today and know that your first point of contact with this visitor was at ConExpo, ConAg, or whatever show you're at. Next, if it's a contact that is already in your sales cycle, be sure to add a history record. Michael talked with John at our booth at ConExpo. They found that the company had a project in this area. The visitor was highly interested in this solution, and they agreed on this next step. Number 4 is a really big one to close the loop on your leads. schedule 3 preset lead reporting dates in the CRM after the show. It might be 30 days, 60 days, 90. It might be 45 days, 90 days, 180 days. Consider the length of your sales cycle and consider the frequency of the show in terms of how many lead reporting dates. The cool thing is when you schedule an action in a CRM system and it shows up in the rep's action item, they have to choose not to take the action. So this is a great way to get everybody dialed in on not just following up, but also reporting the status and the ultimate conversion of the lead. And another idea, if you do not currently have a culture of reporting accountability, put a contest in play. Say the rep, dealer, distributor that gets the highest percentage of their leads to an in-person appointment within X days, your first follow-up date, wins something. For your second date, the rep, dealer, distributor that gets the highest percentage of their leads to an in-person meeting within 90 days wins something. And the final one, the rep, dealer, distributor that converts the highest percentage of their leads to closed orders and reports back on the close wins Z. So X, Y, Z, and the reward should scale. One of the other cool things about using your CRM is you can pre-design email follow-up templates. You can pre-design letters. You can also build scripting into your CRM, and you can use automated process to pre-design your follow-up tracks by lead priority. And finally, in number 8 is you'll be able to track back. You can go in, give me all ConExpo, ConAg leads, and you should be able to pull a report to the status and the conversion. So we've covered a lot of ground in a very short period. Let me review your action steps and get you on your way. Number 1, define what is and what isn't a lead. 2, set specific lead goals. 3, assign a lead captain to track. 4, define what information you need to capture. Step 5, create a lead grading process. Step 6, get the visitor to collaborate and commit to a clear next action. Step 7, follow up on all leads. And our bonus action, track your leads through your CRM system. So thanks for logging into this lead management online educational session. We hope you will take advantage of all the educational sessions on the AEM portal. Thanks for logging in. We will see you on the next session.